Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined again with my trusty co-host, Scott Sage. Scott, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jamie.
So we're sitting here at the beginning of May talking. We just had Airbnb summer release. I just got back from Banff and an amazing CanStays conference, of which a future episode coming up, I'm going to be interviewing the conference organizer, Catherine Radcliffe. So be on the lookout for that coming up episode because it was one, an amazing conference, and two, like the attendees there, the topics there were unlike any other sort of industry conference I've been to, like direct interaction with all the major sort of government officials from Canada, some of the top property managers, and sort of real discussion on what was going on in Canada and what's going to be coming on in to Canada in terms of new regulation. And you can't beat Banff as a
No, you
location.
can't. Yeah, you
Man.
can't beat Banff, can't beat the conference that was put on there. Really looking forward to the episode with Catherine. And yeah, I mean, some could say Banff is iconic in Canada. And
I think you
maybe
could.
that's
Yeah.
where we're gonna go here today as we break down Airbnb's new summer release here that was just announced this week. I'm sure many folks listening to this have seen the news around it. And so this is a good opportunity for us to dig in a little bit deeper and try to understand what this means for hosts and guests alike.
Yeah, and first and we can talk about icons, but I kinda thought Airbnb had 2 releases, like their spring release and their fall release. What's up with the summer release?
They're getting excited with these releases. So um yeah, and they are taking it to the next level with this one. And that's probably a good place to start with icons. There's more to this release than just the flashy icons, but that's a fun place to start. And Jamie, you yourself are a short-term rental icon. So I thought it'd be good to get your perspective on this category. And so maybe just right off the jump, kind of how are you viewing this release from Airbnb and what it means for them?
Yeah, and one across the sort of social media, and I hear constantly that this is a PR stunt. And one, the fact that across social media, people are talking about it, I think it's sort of serving its purpose of like getting people talking about what they're doing. Two, like, as you know, talking to our VP of marketing typically a big part of companies sort of driving traffic to their site and sort of driving long-term usage. So I see this as a major marketing initiative and sort of their next marketing initiative. They've done sort of ads, they've done sort of national brand campaigns, but it doesn't surprise me that Airbnb is going different in terms of coming up with a way to market the product and get people talking about it because it's something they've done time and time again is coming up with new ways to sort of come to market that are different, and I see this as it, and, like, it's got people talking about it. It's pretty cool, and some of the things that they've recreated, like the Up House, like, I'd wanna stay there, and then 2, like and we can maybe talk about in a bit, like, how they're using it to drive engagement, which I think flows into some of the other things that they've announced this, with this release.
Look, sitting from my seat, in marketing land, this is a dream come true. They had to have so much fun building this out, but I think you're right. This is, of course, all speculative from you and me, but my assumption here would be this is part of a broader and long-term strategic play, and this is one lever they have for user acquisition. This is a great play by them to get eyeballs, to get people into the app, and more people utilizing Airbnb. A fraction of the number of people that want to stay at one of these icons will actually end up staying there. But now, folks who otherwise may not have been on Airbnb or booking properties on Airbnb now become aware. And two, start to create accounts, maybe book other places, other stays. And this is a long term play for them. As well as you're starting to see Airbnb move into more broad experiences. So beyond just the lodging, they have had for a while these experiences people can book. And you're starting to see a different flavor of this with the icons. And this can open up many different verticals for them as a platform. So a lot more here than just the PR stunt that you're seeing on social media. And even if it was that, then check mark, they did a good job.
Right. And clearly, as you said, not a revenue play. Like they don't expect this to generate revenue for them as a company. I think most of them are pretty much free to book anyway.
Yeah, they're probably gonna
Uh,
lose money on it in the short term, but the long
oh,
term, yeah.
yeah. And then did you actually try to book one, Scott?
I haven't yet, but that's on my list for this evening.
So my buddy Will Slickers pointed this out. If you try to book one, you can't do it unless you're in the app.
Yep.
So they push people into the app to be able to request a book. You got sort of have to fill out things about yourself, and then secondarily, like you're getting sort of prompted to fill in your profile as a guest. You've got to create an Airbnb account. So, how many people do you think might and one, download the app for the first time because of this. Two, create a profile for the first time because of this. And like just creating that user base. Like I would not be surprised that when Brian comes on to the his earnings call next week, that he's talking about how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people download the app for the first time because of icons, which would be more than just a PR stunt.
Exactly. It's a cheeky user acquisition strategy, but a strategic one in that this is not a startup anymore. This is a massive public company, but who still embraces kind of what's core to their founding and what's core to Chesky in this entrepreneurial nature, very creative, very design thinking. And you're right. I think you are going to see that user acquisition pan out. And all of this, by the way, Jamie, on the heels of their AI investment. So they acquired Game Planner for 200 million, I think a couple months ago here. And so this, you can make some assumptions or speculations. They're kind of tucking all of this in together. There's no doubt they're making significant efforts on the AI front, and getting more people into the app, getting more data only fuels that even further. Well,
No,
let's take a look at some of these icons. I mean, they rolled out with 11. Curious if you had to power rank these, maybe what are your top 3 stack ranked?
I love the up one. Like, just the fact that it, like, you get lifted up into the air. Like, I don't know about you, but I've already gone to the city that they have that in and started to look for homes for sale because, like, I'd love to have the Airbnb next to it that people can rent out just to watch people get lifted into the air, for
That
that.
hey, that might show up on our next best places to invest is the town next door.
Right. And training at the X-Men Mansion, pretty cool. And like Musée d'Orsay in Paris, like that's beautiful. I'm not a big gamer. So yeah, those are my top favorites.
Yeah, I mean, spending a VIP experience with Kevin Hart and some of the best stand-up comedians sounds like a pretty good time. So that may be where my registration goes. Now, that's only 11. Undoubtedly, they're going to be rolling out some more here. So maybe not guessing what's coming next, but Jamie, if you were in that leadership team meeting and you got to create an icon for Airbnb, what are you creating? What's your pitch as an icon to post to the platform?
Yeah. So assuming that Brian's listening and he's going to be able to make good on this. And because I suggested it, he's probably going to let me be one of the first guests of it. I don't know if you've ever been to Switzerland, but there's this train that you can take to the top of a mountain called Jungfrau. And there's this like observatory at the top, and you're like on top of it, you've got views of like glaciers on all side of you. Like you are literally on the top of the world. Like if they could put an Airbnb in that, that would be unfreaking believable.
Is that from 007?
I think they did film up there. Yeah,
So what you're
it
telling me is you want to be Jamie Bond.
or yeah, James Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, that works too. I think I'm going with, since you asked,
Yeah, I
I'm
was about
going
to ask. Yeah.
I'm going with Augusta National. If you could stay at Butler Cabin and play around at Augusta, mainly because that's basically just not ever going to happen. But if somehow Airbnb pulled that off, that would be quite the feat.
Isn't Augusta National like, and you can't buy yourself a like onto
Impossible,
the, yeah,
impossible.
it's
Yeah,
impossible, right?
impossible. And it's fitting because, they're famous for creating the Augusta rule for short-term rentals and that 14-day tax loophole. So, it comes full circle there. But,
I
yeah,
think that existed before Airbnb.
yeah, that's right. Moving on though, I mean, there was more to the release than just the icons. Obviously, that was the flashy headline. That's what people are talking about. But there were some more updates in here. So, a couple highlights from a platform standpoint. Would love your thoughts, Jamie, here. So some things they've rolled out for guests, we'll focus on guests first, is focusing on groups actually and trying to get people to book as groups. They know 80% of bookings on Airbnb are group trips. And so they're trying to cater to that audience. And three things stood out here. Shared wish list, so you can share your desired Airbnbs with others on your trip. Group messaging. Everybody loves the group text. When the group text is firing, the vibes are high. And trip invitations. So once you book a trip, you can invite other people and you can kind of share all the check-in instructions. What do
Yeah.
these three feature rollouts kind of tell you about the direction Airbnb's going?
And one, and it sort of builds on top of what we were talking about before, of bringing people into the app, like group messages and invites of like not just having the host in the app, but bringing your entire group into the app, more profiles, more app downloads, more people sort of coming into the Airbnb ecosystem, I think can only mean good things for them down the road. So, I mean, that's one. Two, as a host, I'm not sure I'm super excited about group messages.
Had the same thought.
I mean, definitely a question for the our uplisting team of like, how does that work in terms of in the unified inbox? I'm sure they have it figured out, but sort of an and I hate getting sometimes in group messages with my friends, much less getting in group messages with the people I'm hosting. Man, uh,
Maybe the positive spin to that too, as a host is, even if you're an individual host or a professional manager, contact information for your guests is valuable information because you can remarket to them to get them to book again. And so you can follow up, you can communicate with them directly. And so there is a positive of actually capturing multiple individuals' information.
yeah, and like we've seen that with companies like StayFi, that actually like get their information by when they check in and try to log into the Wi-Fi. I guess it'll be yet to be seen whether a host will be able to access that. I assuming they're not like your ability to retarget guests. Like obviously Airbnb will, but you as a host probably not.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And I'm still very bullish on the sort of filling out of the guest and host profiles. I feel like that is sort of key data to uh, integrating AI into the experience. So the more information Airbnb can get about guests, the more information that Airbnb has about hosts, unique likes, dislikes, where they like to travel, where and sort of their hobbies, things like that, the better, more information they're going to have in terms of like what I think is coming down the line of like really smart matching of we know who you are, we know where you're going to want to travel, maybe before you even know, and you can sort of suggest those maybe iconic trips that you'd want to take.
Exactly. And again, we talked about it, about 10 minutes ago, but they purchased this AI company for a reason. And this is a pretty obvious use case is to play matchmaker. And the more information you have on what a guest prefers, where and when and why they had a good stay, the better you can create future experiences. And that's ultimately what matters most for Airbnb is continued positive experiences for guests and for hosts. If we shift the focus now to hosts, because we know Airbnb is taking a concerted effort on hosts, and they've made a couple of pretty substantial updates here in this release. Real quick, we'll run through some. So they've updated the listings tab. So the ability for a host to edit their listing has become more powerful and it appears to be more simple to use. Here's the first mention of AI from them here is on the replies and on the reactions, you can use AI suggested quick replies. Then you talk about interactive charts for deeper insight. So this is more of, hey, how am I performing as a host? What are my earnings? And getting deeper insights as to what that looks like. And then a bit more control. This was more of a preview, actually, around your listing photos, some guided tours using AI to help facilitate a better experience for guests as they try to understand what your place looks like. So coupling this with the updates for guests, more updates for hosts, what does this mean for hosts moving forward?
Yeah, and one that I was excited about was sort of the coming sort of more details on amenities. Uh, and as many amenities as Airbnb's had in the past, like I've always felt like the things that I wanted to click weren't actually available. And like, and you're sort of left to trying to highlight them in your title and trying to like put them in all caps and bold in your description. Like, and so the more things that you can do to sort of call out what's in your property, and the better. And assuming too that that's going to be structured data that they can feed into the AI and let people know what they have. So, and then, and the other like around sort of data, I'm a data guy, like the data that sort of that you could view within your earnings dashboard, like I always felt it was like less than desirable in terms of like what you could actually like visualize, see. So always excited about some charting updates and allow you to better visualize and understand what you're earning and maybe what's coming in and out of that and what the guest pays versus what you actually take home. And sort of understanding that is helpful.
More data is always better, right, Jamie? Well, I mean, so as
What
we
about
look
you?
at this,
What did you take away from it?
yeah, I mean, as a host, I think at least on the positive, they're continuing to make updates for hosts. They're continuing to communicate through their actions and emphasis on improving the host experience with some of these updated tools. Objectively, I don't think any of them are significant needle movers. I don't think it's anything that's going to revolutionize or completely transform my experience as a host today, but there are incremental improvements. And that at least gives me some comfort that they continue to focus on hosts. One thing, though, that was omitted from this release and has been omitted from every release in Airbnb's history is a rewards program. And it's often the most asked about feature or a strategic move by both guest and host. So, what did we hear them say around this release about the lack of a rewards program?
Yeah. So, and it wasn't in the actual announcement, but there was a great Skift article that Brian did an interview for around the release. And they sort of got into it because it has been sort of an outgoing question, like, especially since Expedia launched their one key rewards program that includes Vrbo. So Vrbo's now their main competitor, has a rewards program. Is Airbnb going to follow suit? And the answer was and is like probably not. And I think it's for good reason. So like maybe let's step back and like what is a rewards program meant to do? Like what yes, drive loyalty, cause you to want to use like Marriott over Hilton, right? Like Marriott's got Bonvoy, like find a Bonvoy member or an a Delta member. Like if two planes are going to the same place, there's two hotels, a Hilton Garden Inn and a Marriott across the street from each other, like make me choose the one that I'm a loyalty member that I'm part of. Then you think about Airbnb, like most of their inventory is unique. Like if you're choosing to use or stay in a home, like you're more than likely going to go to Airbnb and book it through the platform. And they sort of got the data to support it. We've got the data to support it. I think it was like 34% of users on using Airbnb are super users. They're booking 4 or more trips throughout the year. So they've got a strong loyalty sort of base already. So, and if you create a loyalty program, you're sort of rewarding your best customers with discounts or free stays in the future, and you're not really getting much back for it. It seems like it would just be a financial negative for them. And then what Brian sort of contrasted it to was Amazon Prime. So Amazon Prime, everyone pays for. Like, I think I'm paying what, $125 for the benefit of getting quick shipping and some TV programs. I need to think through if I still need that. But and it is almost entirely dropping to their bottom line, right? In terms of people paying for it. Yes, they've got to pay for content. Yes, they have to pay for that quicker shipping, but I'm sure, it is a very profitable program for them to run. And sort of Brian sort of called out that they'd much rather run a program that's akin to Amazon Prime, where users maybe pay $10, $15 extra per month and get top level service or some other benefit, as opposed to a loyalty program where they're essentially just giving away free stays for people that would have stayed anyway.
What would you want to see in a service like that? Where if you're paying some, let's call it a monthly subscription, who knows what it'll actually be if it does come to fruition, but
Yeah.
what on Airbnb's platform could merit this incremental cost?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Like, I didn't know you're going to ask that question, but like, as a host, I can think of a myriad of things I'd be willing to pay extra for. Or just as a host, like Airbnb should just be doing these things for me. But like, I think like why I would join Marriott Bonvoy is like, I want free Wi-Fi. I want to get the points for those future stays. Like, I'm already going to get free Wi-Fi. And maybe there's sort of partnerships that Airbnb can build with other companies that would then offer me discounts. So Airbnb sort of leveraging, like, we've got people in the app, like, you want to give these high earner, like frequent travelers, like access, like maybe it's first access to experiences or icons or like things that would make me really feel like a Airbnb super user. Like, I'm sure they can come up with some fun things that for people that are regularly traveling or doing family travel, to make those stays, make those experiences better.
Yeah, I think the key distinction you started to call out here is one reason Airbnb doesn't necessarily need to offer a loyalty program is they're not a commodity. These other examples you're talking about, airlines and hotels, effectively are commodities. And Airbnb also is really the dominant player in the space too. So from a platform level and from an individual inventory perspective, the reward system, although it'd be well received by travelers and hosts alike, is not something that they need to do as a company.
And the other point I'll make there is I still, and correct me if I'm wrong, haven't seen an OTA loyalty program really take off. Like, it's still yet to be seen whether Expedia's is going to work. Um, and yes, Delta's great. American's great. Hilton's great. Like, maybe even Hertz. Like, all those are brands. And like, where with an OTA, people are, I'm typically brand agnostic. I don't meet really anyone that says, you know what, I'm really an Expedia person. Like, I only book my travel through Expedia because I'm looking to build points there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you fast forward 5, 6, 7 years, and there are some big enough like managers and brands of STR operators that can be offering this, where somebody like a Vacasa or a Stay or some of these other large institutions start to actually have the scale where they can offer it, but we're probably a couple years out from that.
No, and I could absolutely see like a Vacasa where they are a commodity maybe within the short-term rental space of like, if I'm going on and looking at Airbnb and now like deciding between a Vacasa or a Stay, like, oh, like I would like to earn some Vacasa points while I'm booking this Airbnb. And maybe I'll go to vacasa.com to book it because they give me some benefit if I go direct, something like that.
That's right.
But that's down the line, and there's so much consumer sort of training, that's gonna need to happen for people to even start to recognize brands within this space.
One other release, not in this summer release, but in the prior one, was guest favorites.
Mhm.
And Jamie, curious what you've seen so far, either in the data or from experience, on what that release around guest favorites has yielded in terms of both guest and host experience.
Yeah, something I think is interesting, and it was called out again in the interview, that Brian did for Skift, was sort of the question around, does guest favorites sort of dilute superhosts? 'Cause they really are highlighting, like, if I go in and search on Airbnb, like, the top properties on most searches coming up are guest favorites, and they still have the little pills for superhost, it's still highlighting, but and that superhost badge is front and center, it's big, like, they're now finally starting to roll out the top properties within it, like top 1%, top 5%, top 25% of properties. So, and there really is a highlighting and sort of emphasis on that. And Brian calls out it's because these properties have sort of proven their consistency and reliability. And that is, I suspect, and if I was able to dig into all the consumer surveys that they do of like, that's what people want most is reliability, knowing that when they book something, when they walk in the door, they're going to get a reliable, consistent experience and that they're trying to highlight those properties that are actually doing that. And someone gets a superhost badge and like you're a property manager, like you've got some good properties, you got some bad ones, like and just because you're a superhost doesn't sort of guarantee that each property is actually going to be consistent. So this gives people really a way to sort of differentiate that. And does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way I thought about the differentiation here is you apply the guest favorite at the listing level and superhost at the host level or the account level. The other element here is that the guest favorite updates every 24 hours. And so it can go in and out, whereas Superhost is a quarterly award. And having been in this seat before where acting as a Superhost, like with multiple properties under management, there are a portion or pocket of the properties that just would never qualify for the guest favorite. And you don't want to be penalized as a host for those particular units across the rest of your portfolio. And so actually guest favorites is a way to differentiate those. And maybe a potential analogy here is even like back to Marriott. Marriott can have the brand recognition or be considered a super host in some travelers' minds, but even their individual hotel properties are going to vary in terms of quality. And so now you might have the premier versions of Marriott or premier properties on Airbnb as guest favorite, which is separated from the host.
Yeah, but and also like Marriott's got brands, right? Like I know that there's a difference between a Ritz-Carlton and and what's a lower level a Town Place Suites, right? And that's a way that they're able to sort of signal quality because and you wouldn't expect a Ritz-Carlton level service when you sort of check into a Town Place Suites, even though they are both Marriott properties.
Exactly. And that's exactly why this guest favorite kind of badge helps differentiate for the travelers. Anything
Yeah.
else in this release or in the prior release, Jamie, that has jumped out to you or that has maybe made an impact on performance that you've seen in the data?
And maybe I'll call out one that still hasn't, because I was scratching my head when this happened, was their sort of re-release of Rooms. Clearly, like, that has not been emphasized anymore, and really they've gone maybe the opposite direction. And what could be sort of, and juxtaposed against, like, renting a private room? and sort of going back to the core of Airbnb to and being able to rent the up house and having to request it and it being sort of a one in a million type experience. So that one, and we just still haven't seen really any movement in terms of growth in private rooms. And if anything, have continued to see listings and performance in that area continue to slide.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from this release is strategically the direction Airbnb is trying to move is around broadening their verticals into new experiences and an emphasis on community. I think you've heard them talk about and use that specific word a decent amount, even in this release. And so, with features like groups, with these unique experiences, it emphasizes and amplifies the need for community, and maybe even trying to build a community within their app and their platform.
Oh, that's great. So next time maybe we record, I'll be on the top of Jungfrau. You'll be at Augusta National, and we'll be both recording from our iconic experiences.
I would love that. I hope that comes true.
Me too.
All right, Jamie. Good stuff. Appreciate the time.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks all for listening.